What's going on, YouTubes? It is time for a recap. So let's get into it. As we've seen the morning's force up today from Friday's Big Bang up, we were looking for that 663. If you've been watching our channel, we've been talking about this weekly 1618 for quite some time, over under, looking for that downside macro short into my target of the green zone. We did hit that on Thursday. We are suffering a little bit of a bounce from that to see if we close back under the 663 to come down to 65227. This week with all the jobs data might be it. So how did we have the run up to force up action today? Well, called it in Discord this morning. I said, man, this is a huge force up. We're going to plan for a short at open, okay? Closer to open. So we have this crazy force up to here, pre-market high, obviously 665.80, started walking down right when I got on around 6630. So that's a scam. We're going to pop off the 100 EMA, and then we're going to look for a short near the open. But how did I assess that? Well, we're going to bring it into the futures first and show you guys what we got for the Fibbies and the 100. So right here, notice this is the 5 p.m. Central Sunday open for me, right? I took this 15 back here for a high low. We're on the 5-minute chart, so you're not going to see it perfectly, but it was 668.83 to 666.829. That is a 15-minute no tag 50 candle that was very important on the 15. So as you've seen, the Sunday open up after this long drive up, right? And what did we already see here? Well, we had seen a 15 high low go into the 1618, but not come back down to the 100 in regular Fibonacci wave. So when we grabbed onto that 10 SMA, it became an algo buy, right? An algo buy is when something opens up and it just goes straight like this. All it does is hug the 10 SMA. And it has to wait until we hit a actual resistance to break that algo trend. So if you notice the green 100 EMA on the 5-minute here, and we have that 10 SMA ride right at open. So right here at that 5 p.m., we never came back into the 100 EMA. Right? So it just ran. So that was in pre-market when I woke up right here. And I said, okay, well, started talking in a chat. And I said, guys, this is a pure scam up. We're going to hit that 3618. First tag, perfect. Pulls back. And I said, go long off the 100 EMA. If you want to go a little easy scalp, we called 30 points to the long side off the first tag 100 EMA. Again, check our Discord. We went through it. We called it just like this. Algo trend up. First tag of the 100 EMA from all day was at 6:40 a.m. Central. It's the first time ES had came into the 100 EMA. So that hit comes back up to the 3618. So I shorted the open because what best scalp does Brandon always tell us on YouTube? 3618 to 2618 off of my extension programs, right? So under 67.35 goes to 67.16. And that was our short. So all thanks to this beautiful Fibonacci here on the 15-minute, that led me to believe once we hit the 3618, we were going to open up and slide right to the 2618, right to the 1618. We had 6,700 as my final short target, walking down the fibs from the 3618, 2618, 1618. That's what I left my group with. We'll get into that in a second. Lastly, NQ. Now, we had a grouping of gaps. You know me in 1 minute imbalance gaps, right? We had a big runaway from this. Well, we had 3 unfilled 1 minute gaps today. 20, well, we're not going to say the whole thing. 784, 789, 797, right? There's 3 1 minute gaps. And I said, yeah, that's a pretty good drag. If we get under a certain level on QQQ, which I'll go over next, you will take this short and run that baby down. And that false pop is going to get sold off because we have too many algo magnets below us, 24,800 being that key. Right? So we had over 120 point call down to here as long as Q's lost this level. So we called this right before I left in the Discord, and I gave my chat an over under. It's not the chart I want. There we go. All right, you see the drawings here. This is what I left my crew with. Long on the QQQ was 600.83. Okay, we had a very interesting level there for a volume inbounce and an algorithm I was watching all morning. Now, 683 tapped into the long. That was my long out of the gate if it held the 100 EMA and the top of this algo, which we'll go over. Both happened perfectly. The 100 EMA right to 683. Now you see this drawing right here, right? And this was the short call I gave my crew. I said, guys, I'm not into it for a full-on long day. All I want to see is the VIX over 16. Go ahead and short it under 600.83. That was the whole play. I said, we'll come back down to the GP of the algo, which you see in the gray, which means if you do a Fibonacci from the high-low of this little algo wick here, that was the short call. And now I wanted to see it come up to 602.41 before fail But SPY kind of drug us down a little bit, which no big deal. We put this as the over-under for a reason because of a 5-minute volume inbounce algorithm that I use. So when this popped back up and bounced, could not hold, it was getting lower highs. Notice that cross in the RSI and MACD, just perfect right there for the downside. That's why I drew these two short calls for the friends here in Discord. And I said the GP will be your final target. So the over-under I made right here and said anything under that 600.83 will be short biased, and I will see you at the 50. Your target short is 597.64. The short sentiment starts at 600.83. It ends right there at the 50 fib of the algo high low. Where'd we go to? Drum roll. Hey, right there, baby. Last coming into 14:15 there, last little hour and some change of the day, coming down into our short target. Now, all that is fine and dandy. And again, we did those predictions in chat for us, but what's the macro? What does that leave us with now, right? Okay, Brandon says macro short. Where are we going? Well, we're going to go to the SPY real quick, and I want to talk about the golden fibs from yesterday, okay? So yesterday's trade action, obviously Friday, yesterday's lows in the blue dash line, yesterday's highs in the orange dash line, right? We fibbed that out, high, low, pointing the extension to the upside because clearly price action is above yesterday's highs. So I wanted to see the golden 1618 on both QQQs and SPY hit before we had the move back down. So that was one thing. We also did take long here today because if you notice, the last candle of pre-market dumped into the pre-market open, into the 200 SMA 5-minute, and I said long to the 1618 because that algo will get a magnet back up because Fibonacci. So that happened, and I said, well, if it doesn't get over 65512, which we were looking for it to go as high as pre, which we said don't trade, we were just watching on SPY side, trade Qs over everything today, just watch for the failure on SPY and breakdown. So I went very, very calmly, and I said, guys, watch for the break and retest and short it, right? So here's your break and retest. And it's funny because we said pre-market low and pre-market open were what you wanted to look for, right? Here's under 66512. Boom, fresh low break. Boom, right back into the pre-market open and pre-market low. Short that all the way down to yesterday's highs. That's what we had said for SPY. Perfect, right? Because Qs didn't fill that gap. SPY did. What's next? Well, that beautiful magnet has clicked, and now we are going to talk about the macro a little bit. I don't care if September ends here in a nice green monthly candle, but we do need to get down to some of these supports down here to assess the short loop, okay? What is a loop? Well, a loop is something that will come under a moving average for me, this being the 10 SMA daily. We have an all-time high at 677.34. You notice the daily candle go under that 10 SMA. Tag my short target, which is the weekly zone, pops back up to that weekly 1618. So the macro is still this. We have looped under the 10 and back up, creating a potential lower high scenario from all-time high. Now we just need to close again under that wicked 663 level to come down to 652.27. That is still the macro coming into the end of September into October now, right? Because if we go to a monthly chart, we're not huge on green Septembers unless, I suppose, followed by, right? May, that was a misclicker here. May, June, July, August, September. And there is a metric for this. It says if you do green closes in all these months, historically September will be green, which more often than not, September is the sell month. Well, it's going to be October this time, most likely moving into it. So let's talk about where September could close, even if it isn't green right now. This is still that weekly Fibonacci that is in control. So we are going to look for that under 663 on the weekly and head down to the 100 still, because September, even though it's going to end green, it doesn't have to end with a full body candle, right? September could sell from 663 all the way down to 652.27, 1.6%, and still obviously maintain a green close. It'll just have a wick. Excuse me. And we obviously don't have too much time left to September. So that weekly, we're going to jump back into, this is where we got that fib for the macro we've been talking about for many videos here. Has no GP, so high-low, goes up, test the 1618. I said this zone right here would be the final target, and this whole piece of the pie here was the GP from 9.8. Notice the green zone, right? But the high from 9.1 and the GP from 9.8 were our short magnets. So anything under that 663, we come to the center of 9.8. Anything under the 663, finalizing down to the GP would be best case, which is obviously the GP here. We'll see when it gets there. What we need now to happen no matter what, let's get this new chart in the mix here. This has to happen. This is a weekly doji from last week, an all-time high. I want you guys to focus on this doji more than anything to pop you back down to where you're supposed to go, okay? Teal is my weekly color. Now, this is going to be very close to that 663, so we're going to watch because this is that weekly doji from last week, clearly perfectly hit. If we end up coming up and holding 663 for some chop to head back up, fine, whatever. But wait till the news comes out, wait till the data comes out as we keep coming in, and wait till those big closes under 663 and now about 662, right? Those have an opportunity to shuffle us way down to the 100 of the weekly, and our finals, there we go, of 652.27, but it has to close under 663, 662, where we get those weekly levels, right? We don't have too much else onto the upside of things here, except for waiting for some data to kind of kill us off. And if this did want to drag us back up, right, crazily, it has a lot of work to do that above the 663, because right now we're just getting a 10 SMA loop on the daily, and I think once we start closing under that 10 SMA, under that 663, we get the data. We have jolts tomorrow, ADP, just jobs every damn day except for today. So watch for that macro short. We do have the crosses down to the onto the MACDs daily as well. And I know there's lots of divergence with that, but the difference between some of the divergence you're seeing is when we got these crosses back here, we weren't necessarily pairing up RSI with more room to go. So you see that bigger MACD cross, it rolls back over. Notice that high RSI was already at support, so all it did was knock right into that RSI and pick back up. And then the MACD took a while to resurface back up. Notice this time right now, it's a little different. The RSI is coming off of a hot all-time high, and the line has more room to the 50. And the MACD is crossing again. So we are still in very good sell territory coming into October, and we will reassess the close as we get under 663 this week, and all of that jolts and jobs and ADP data pending, we're going to see it get mixed up to that downside. So keep those targets on from these weeklies we covered, and we'll see you down there soon. Take care.